Welcome dear students once again to Red Online School Education Program for the year 2021-22. Myself Professor P.B. Sargade from Sadhguru Gadge Maharaj College Karad, and since last 4 lectures we are studying the most important topic from our biology syllabus, that is the ninth topic, control and coordination. This is the lecture number 5 of our topic. Now let's start. Now in this topic, we are going to study two important sense organs of the human being. The first sense organ is the eye. Now what is the eye? All of us know, but in our scientific manner, we have to understand and we have to study the structure of the eye. The eyes are a pair of sensory organs of vision. These are located in the orbit of skull with a cushion of fat around them. Each eye is spherical or rounded and is called an eyeball. The eyes are protected by the bones, eyebrows, upper and lower eyelids, with eyelashes and the lacrimal or tear glands. The movement of eyeball within the orbit is controlled by 6 sets of muscles. Now this was a brief information about the eye. Now moving towards the next slide. Wall of the eyeball is made up of 3 layers. Now I will explain you in detail. You are watching the diagram in front of you in the screen. Now the first wall of eyeball is called as sclera. The second wall is called as choroid, and the third wall or the third part is called as retina. Now in this diagram, you are going to see the vertical section of the eyeball or longitudinal section of the eyeball. In this, all these structures are shown in clear manner. Now this is the outermost layer, it is called as sclera. Then the inner layer, it is cut open here, it is the middle layer, it is called as choroid here. And the internal layer, which is the innermost, it is called as the retina. So all of you know the labeling and meaning of these layers. The first is the sclera, the second is the choroid, and the third is the retina. Now other labels you are watching here. This is the ciliary body here at the upper side. Then beneath that it is the sensory ligament. Then the outermost layer of the eyeball or the eye is the cornea. It is the most important layer and it is exposed to the outside environment. Then beneath the cornea there is a layer of aqueous humor. Now this provides nourishment to the upper side. Then inside the aqueous humor, the layer beneath the cornea, it is called as iris, and the opening or the non-covered portion here shown, it is called as the pupil. Now again read these labels: cornea, iris, this region pupil, this filled portion is aqueous humor, and the internal part is the lens here. Then inside the eyeball there is presence of vitreous humor, it is filled inside the eyeball. Then the just opposite to the lens there is a fovea center of visual field. Then the optic nerve you are going to see here, and the central artery and the vein of the retina are here. Then the optic disc, or simply in our language it is called as blind spot, you are going to see here. Now this is the structure of eyeball. Again remember, sclera, choroid and retina, these are the outermost layers of the eyeball. Now moving towards the next part, the external structure of an eye. Now we are going to see the external structure of an eye. Here the parts of the eye that are visible externally comprise the external structure of the eye. These include the following. The first, as described in the earlier diagram, is the sclera. It is a tough and thick white sheath that protects the inner parts of the eye. We know it as the white of the eye. The whiter portion of the eye, it is nothing but sclera. Now the next portion or the next part is conjunctiva. It is a very thin, transparent membrane that is spread across the sclera. Then the most important, as described in the earlier diagram by me, is cornea. It is the transparent layer of skin that is spread over the pupil and the iris. Then the next part is iris. It is a pigmented layer of tissues that make up the colored portion of the eye. And the next part is the pupil. It is the small opening as shown in the previous diagram located in the middle of the iris. It allows light to come in. Now this is the external structure of an eye. Now moving forward, the internal structure of an eye. Now this is very fascinating. Look at the slide and observe carefully. The internal structure of an eye includes the following parts. The first, as shown in the diagram, is the lens. It is a transparent, elastic and biconvex structure. Then B is a retina. It is innermost delicate and non-oscular light sensitive layer. It is made up of three layers. The first layer is photosensitive layer. The second layer is bipolar layer. And the third layer is ganglion layer. Now remember again these three layers in the retina: photosensitive layer, then the second is the bipolar layer, and the third is the ganglion layer. Then the next part is the optic nerve. Again, the next part is aqueous humor. It is a space present between cornea and lens. Then the vitreous humor we have seen in the previous diagram. It is the space present between lens and the retina. Now moving towards the next part, the photoreceptor cells. Now when we talk about the eye is concerned with the sense of vision. So there are photoreceptor cells and these are of two types. The first are the rod cells and the second are the cone cells. Now what is the difference or what is the description of these cone cells and rod cells? We will see in detail. Firstly, the cone cells. The cones or the cone cells are responsible for daylight, that is the photopic vision and color vision. Now remember, this question has asked so many times in the multiple choice questions and so many exams. Remember, the cones are responsible for daylight, that is phototopic vision, and color vision. The colors, they are seen because of these cone cells. The cones are of three types which contain their own characteristic photopigments that respond to red, green and blue lights. Remember, they respond to red, green and blue lights. Various combinations of these cones and their photopigments produce collectively sensation of different colors as described earlier. The sensation of white light is produced due to the simultaneous equal stimulation of these three types of cones. Now this was about the cone cells and how the color vision and the photopic vision is realized there because of the cone cells we have studied. Then the next are the rod cells. The rods or the rod cells function in dim light, that is very low light. It is called as scotopic vision. Then the purple red protein called as rhodopsin is present in the rods, which is vitamin A derivative. Now this was about the cone cells and about the rod cells in detail. Now moving towards the next part, how the image is generated in the eye. Now this point is the generation of image. The light rays from the object, remember the light rays from the object pass through the conjunctiva and cornea through the pupil. Now the opening, we called it as pupil, and they are upon the lens and is focused on the retina to form an image. In the visual area of cerebrum, the nerve impulses are analyzed and the image formed is recognized. Now by this way the image is generated, or this point is the generation of image. Then moving towards the next point is how the vision in the human being is produced or how the vision is realized. Now we will see in this flow chart here. Changes in retina when light rays fall on it. Then the light falls on rod and cone cells in retina. Then breaking of light sensitive pigments by specific wavelength of light. Then stimulation of rod and cone cells, and generation of nerve impulse. Then this nerve impulse transmitted to bipolar nerve cells. All of you, we have studied the bipolar nerve cells. Then the nerve impulse transmitted to the ganglion cells. Nerve impulse in the axon of ganglion cells converge and leave via the optic nerve. Then the nerve impulse is transmitted by optic nerve to brain. And lastly, the perception of image by the brain cells is done. And by this process, now this is a very lengthy process when we see theoretically. Now all these actions, they occur in a fraction of seconds. So by this systematic way, the image of an object is recognized and it is realized, and the human being or the animal, it is seeing that image. Now moving towards the next sense organ is the ear. Now the first point is the structure of ear. Now this diagram is here. The ear is the organ of hearing and balance. The human ear is called as statoacoustic organ, and it has two functions. Firstly, the hearing and body equilibrium. What are those functions? Hearing and body equilibrium or body balance. Now this is the structure of the ear. This part is the external ear, this part is the middle ear, and this is the internal ear. Now the outer ear shows an air pinna. Then this is the air canal, this is the air pinna, this is the air canal or the passage, this is the outer ear. Now inside, in the middle, there is presence of eardrum here. Then the bone which is attached to the eardrum or just behind the eardrum is malleus. Then the second part is the incus. Then this is the middle ear, and this is the stapes. Now stapes is the smallest bone in the body of the human being. This is the inner ear, this is the middle ear, and this is the tube which is called as eustachian tube, and this is the part of the internal ear, it is called as cochlea. Now I am telling you again, this is the outer ear or external ear, this is the ear pinna, this is the middle ear, this is the inner ear, then this is the malleus, this is the incus, and this is the stapes, this is the eardrum, then this is the eustachian tube, and this is the cochlea. Now this was the structure of an ear. Now moving towards the next point, anatomically the ear is made up of three layers. Now which are those three layers? External ear, as explained you in the earlier diagram, then the middle ear and the inner ear. Now we are going to see it in detail. The external or outer ear. The external or outer ear is consisting of pinna or auricle. This is the outside part or the outermost part of the ear. Second, the external auditory canal or tube. This is the tube that connects the outer ear to the inside or middle ear. Then the third part or the third region is the tympanic membrane, or it is called as simply the eardrum. The tympanic membrane divides the external ear from the middle ear. Now, these are the three parts: pinna or auricle, then external auditory canal or tube, and the tympanic membrane or eardrum. Now, moving towards the next slide, the middle ear, it is also called as tympanic cavity. Middle ear or tympanic cavity is consisting of, the first part is the ossicles, three small bones that are connected and transmit the sound waves to the inner ear, and the bones are called as malleus, incus, and stapes. Now I have told you stapes is the smallest bone. Then the second part is the eustachian tube, a canal that links the middle ear with the back of the nose. Now this is called as the eustachian tube. The eustachian tube helps to equalize the pressure in the middle ear. The equalized pressure is needed for the proper transfer of sound waves. The eustachian tube is lined with mucus, just like the inside of the nose and throat. Now these are the two parts of the middle ear, ossicles and eustachian tube. Now moving towards the next point is the inner ear, and the inner ear is consisting of three regions again. The first is cochlea. This contains the nerves for hearing. Then the second part is vestibule. This contains receptors for balance. Then the third part is the semicircular canals. This contains receptors for balance. So the three parts: cochlea, vestibule and semicircular canals. Now moving towards the next point, vestibule and inner structure of cochlea. Now here by diagram we are going to see the internal structure here. Now these are the semicircular canals. This is the anterior, this is the posterior, and this is the lateral. Then this region is the ampulla of semicircular duct here. Then this is the oval window here, this. Then the secondary tympanic membrane in round window here, this is here. Then this is the uppermost portion is the bony labyrinth. It contains perilymph. Then membranous labyrinth, it contains endolymph. Then this is the ampulla of semicircular canal. This is the utricle. This is the vestibule. This is the cochlea, and this is the cochlear duct. And this is the sacculus. Now this is the structure of vestibule and inner structure of cochlea. Now here this region is cut open and shown by the magnification. This is the cochlea in section. This is the bone here, and this structure you are going to see. And this structure is modified here. These are the organs of Corti. This is the tectorial membrane. Then this is the outer hair cells, and these are the nerve fibers. Now this is the vestibule and inner structure of cochlea. Now we are going to see the mechanism of hearing. Now in stepwise manner we are going to see. First, the pinna of the ear receives the sound waves and directs them to eardrum. Then what happens? Eardrum vibrates, and these vibrations are amplified and transmitted through the ear ossicles to the endolymph inside cochlea. Then this generates wave in the endolymph. Then these waves induce ripples in the basilar membrane. These movements in the basilar membrane cause the hair cells to press against tectorial membrane. This generates nerve impulse in the afferent neurons. Impulse is sent to the brain via the auditory nerve, and auditory cortex of the brain decodes the sound. Now this is the entire mechanism of hearing, and by this process the hearing is recognized by the human being and the hearing is done. Now moving towards the now what we studied in this topic, we have studied the two major sense organs of the body. The first is the eye and the second is the ear. Now so many times in our board exams the question is asked on the ear and the eye. So I have explained you in the detail. Now this lecture number 5th ends here. Thank you all of you. Now we will stop here and we will meet in the next 6th lecture. Thank you all of you.